Good morning, and thank you for inviting me to present the case for impact in social enterprises and big business, especially in the post-COVID world. As you will shortly discover, this subject is more than the flavor of the decade. It is an evolution in thought and a revolution in means. It may take this whole decade before impact becomes a science. That is, all capital is allocated as a habit to the three-step impact continuum of responsibility, sustainability, or impact investment. Across a range of issues, from climate change and water to refugees and youth employment, really to appreciate this very significant impact revolution, it's my pleasure today to walk you through the genesis and goals of this global impact movement. So the next 20 minutes, I will focus on three key messages. One, the impact vision is a renaissance of social, environmental, and economic justice. Two, impact measurement and management, assessment and reporting is the navigation system for this audacious journey. And three, Jordan can indeed become the impact finance hub for Arabia to catalyze the impact movement in the region. So let's jump into the first one, which is the vision for an impact economy. So ladies and gentlemen, a renaissance is underway. Mounting public disquiet across the world is stirring up a revolution. Today's world is increasingly unacceptable to many, with 3 billion still living under $5 a day, while the top 1% of the world owns 2/3 of the global wealth. The imminent catastrophe of climate change adds to the urgency and the demand for a safer, more equal world, with the latest IPCC report contending that we will breach the 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature rise red line. And inequity is also behind the many crises and uprisings roiling this globe since the beginning of this century, from the global financial crisis to the Arab Spring, Occupy Wall Street, Brexit, Paris Yellow Vest movement, Extinction Rebellion, and a global rise in populism. Social and economic inequity has reached a level that people are no longer willing to abide. UN's SDGs offer hope, but are hamstrung by an annual financing gap of about $2.5 billion in developing countries alone. There has never been a more urgent need to reconsider our social, political, and economic systems, especially the role of capital. So the impact economy offers a solution, a simple, bold idea that capital has a higher purpose, impact. And capital in the service of a more equitable economic order is driving this shift for the global economy to move and shift to an impact economy. Now, this impact economy is the result of both evolutionary transitions over a long period of time and revolutionary disruptions. Evolutionary transitions as human values and attitudes evolve, and revolutionary transitions due discontinuities and disruptions in the economy and society led by technology and generational shift to millennials as 80 trillion gets passed on in inheritance, 80 trillion. So let me describe the top 5 shifts which are evolutionary and top 5 that are revolutionary, so that first and foremost, you believe in this movement as much as I do. The 5 evolutionary shifts around the world are: 1, we're moving from individual ownership to commons, as shift from the market sphere to common spheres, which privileges use value over exchange value. From shareholder impact to stakeholder impact, Milton Friedman is history, not economics. Many businesses already incorporate the need to serve stakeholders like customers, employees as their core purpose. Poor are moving from fringes to focus. The world, including the Pope, has rejected the trickle-down theory that absolute economic growth will percolate to the poor and bring them out of poverty. No. Inclusive growth, inclusive business, inclusive capital are taking root. From divergent to convergent economic goals, the biggest evolutionary shift over the last several decades is the demise of the myth that one cannot do good and do well together. Those centuries are gone when you would make money all your life, and then when you are old, about to retire, about to die, you give it away in philanthropy. The growing impact movement provides irrefutable evidence that impact and profit can coexist. And the fifth and final evolutionary shift is from information asymmetry to symmetry. Technology, media has democratized information, disintermediated markets, and reduced information arbitrage. And all this is driving this impact economy. But the impact economy is also getting formed because of revolutionary disruptions. And the 5 key ones for you all to know is 1, wealth maximization to impact optimization. The steady shift of investors and enterprises from maximizing wealth to optimizing risk, return, and impact across all the 3 strategies, responsible, sustainable, and impact investment, is disrupting capital allocations. 2, we have learned to move from discrete to systemic investment. For example, in promoting electric vehicles, governments are encouraging solar energy installations on rooftop at a retail level and power recharge stations at a public level. Similarly, in improving learning outcomes, we are focusing not just on teacher quality and curriculum and school infrastructure, but also midday meals and health interventions like deworming pills in Africa to get the kids in school. Or in building smart cities, the focus goes beyond mixed housing, transportation, tech enablement, water and sanitation to also address carbon footprint, waste management, amongst other socioeconomic factors. A third revolutionary shift is the move from activities to outcomes. And a big shift, which is going to move governments and philanthropists, and large investors, is to get away from budgeting and spending to outcomes from activities. And this is going to reorient limited resources toward results using newer instruments like impact bonds and outcome funds. The fourth one is from linear to circular economy, moving from any waste generated during the production processes to be discarded to circular economy where raw materials, products, waste are responsibly reused and recycled. And the fifth and the last revolutionary shift is average citizens moving from passive to responsible consumption. Millennials consumers are showing in survey after survey that they are more likely to buy a sustainable brand. 15% of millennials voted that they prefer sustainable brands, vis-a-vis 7% non-millennials. Now, these evolutionary and revolutionary shifts are ensuring we can march towards our impact future with great confidence that we can win. Win against vested interests and an economic system that embodies survival of the fittest in the name of meritocracy. We can win a world where there is social, climate, and economic justice. Now, that is a vision worth living for, worth fighting for. So let me describe this vision in a little bit more detail and walk you through, the genesis of this impact movement. And I'll take you back to early 2000, when disruption to traditional investing in the form of impact investing was evolving. Back in 1994, John Elkington moved in the idea of triple bottom line. COP1 was held in Berlin in 1995. UN launched Millennium Development Goals in the year 2000. And in those early years, dozens of impact funds were born. Triodos in Holland in 99, Acumen in US in 2001, Avishkar in India in 2001, Bridges in 2002 in UK, Responsibility in 2003 in Switzerland. And you suddenly saw capital getting allocated to the cause of impact, to social enterprises, which are now being called impact enterprises. United Nations PRI was created in 2006, and there were 2 successive Nobels to Muhammad Yunus for social responsibility in 2006 and to Al Gore for climate change and bringing global warming into focus in 2007. That in 2008 at a Rockefeller meeting in Bellagio, Italy, the term impact investing was coined. And since the arrival of impact investing, the world has converged around a definition of a 3-step impact continuum, a 3-step impact ladder with ESG or responsible investing as step 1, sustainable investing as step 2, and impact investing as step 3. And these are being called the ABCs of the impact investment world. A meaning avoid harm, ESG responsible investing, avoid harm. B meaning benefit all stakeholders. In sustainable investing, think of renewable energy, sustainable forestry, sustainable agriculture, sustainable fisheries. And in C, contribute to solution, which many of you in the audience are focused on: social enterprise, affordable education, affordable healthcare, wash, waste management, financial inclusion, etc. And collectively, this ABC has moved 60 trillion of global wealth, 60 trillion with a T, to the impact continuum. Globally, there's about $120 trillion of wealth. So half the world's wealth has already moved to this continuum, and it's a matter of time before the other half moves. So for 2 decades, this visible quest for a more sustainable, consensus economy has landed us within striking distance of an impact economy. So if anyone was to ever ask you, what is this impact economy? Please unhesitatingly respond: an economy which embeds impact as an economic concept, a noun, not a word, an economic concept like risk and return in every business, investment, policy, and consumption decision. That's an impact economy. And the pursuit of an impact economy is the pursuit of purpose. We see that purpose defined by UN SDGs that seek to end poverty, end hunger, provide healthcare, promote decent employment, manifest economic, environmental well-being in every corner of the world. This transition to an impact economy is visible, pervasive across 4 realms: business, investment, policy, and consumption. And to really become experts at this, it's important that we visit each of these 4 realms to see how far has the pendulum swung. And that's what I do for a living. So in business, over 50% Fortune 500 companies, 100% of the companies listed on FTSE 100, CAC 40, Bombay Stock Exchange, 500, Japan Stock Exchange top 40, including, I believe, on Amman Stock Exchange, they are all now complying with ESG reporting. Over 80% of Standard & Poor 500 companies report on sustainability. A couple of years back, 181 chief executives of US companies decided to sign a declaration that their companies will transcend goals of profit making to serve all stakeholders, not just shareholders. Big business needs to move to impact accounting too. Just like Danone, the 20 billion euro European food giant, which reported last year, for the first time, its carbon adjusted earning per share, bravely showing that it was 25 to 30% lower than financial earning per share, and that the carbon adjusted EPS was moving faster than, or growing faster than, financial EPS. But it's the scaling of impact enterprises, social enterprises, which is the story of the last decade. And it's a story that will go down in economic history with scores of unicorns. And I can probably help you count to 100. Globally, Tesla crossing, trillion in market cap, Beyond Meat selling plant-based foods, crossing 5 billion in market cap, Hollywood star Jessica Alba's personal care company, The Honest Company, a 2 billion market cap, the drone delivery company, which started in Africa, dropping drugs to far off zipline, over $1 billion. Wearable device company Orcam, which offers you a camera and a hearing device for people with disabilities, vision disabilities, to read books, find paths on the road. Or the microbe seed company Indigo. They're all billion-dollar unicorns. In my country, India, we've had dozens of social enterprises which have crossed the $1 billion market cap or revenues, from Amul in dairy farming to Jain irrigation and drip irrigation. Fab India recently IPO'd in handicrafts and traditional garments. Ramki Invero in waste management. Narayan Health in affordable healthcare. They brought down heart surgery from $2,500 to $800 for the poor. Microfinance companies start small finance banks like Equitas and AU Bank. They're all billion-dollar babies. This is the decade of impact enterprise. And if we saw 100 unicorns last decade, you're going to see 1,000 this decade. Let's turn to investing. The funding for responsible, sustainable, and impact investing has gone from near zero in year 2000 to 60 trillion in 2020, half of world wealth. What are we finding? According to Morningstar in US, sustainable funds outperformed their conventional peers in 2019. In India, throughout the COVID crisis, State Bank of India studies showed that ESG stocks and ESG funds had a lesser fall than the competitors. Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, the $6 trillion world's biggest wealth manager, has been articulating this inextricable link between profit and purpose in his annual letters. So what is the investment world teaching us? Simply, to put billions in wealth maximization strategies when we have irrefutable evidence that impact drives profit and scale is simply put irresponsible. Let's turn to policy, where budgeting and spending, as I mentioned, has moved from activities to outcome. Policies and regulation reforms around the world, like 90-10 solidarity funds in France, opportunity zones in the US, profit for purpose legal forms in South Korea, Thailand, Jan Dhan accounts for the poor in India. They're all setting a scorching pace on how governments pursue impact. Last year, the US Democratic presidential hopeful Elizabeth Warren had proposed an Accountable Capitalism Act, urging corporations to create a general public benefit. And on policy, I believe a new social contract will soon be formed between citizens and governments as we reset liberty versus equality, efficiency versus communitarianism. I believe we will soon have what we call an Impact Act. And last, let's turn to consumption, where ethical and responsible consumption movement is allowing every ordinary citizen to be part of the impact movement. According to a Nielsen poll, AC Nielsen, one of the world's biggest market research company, 66% of consumers and 73% of millennials are willing to pay more for sustainable products, not less, more for products from social enterprises and ethical, responsible, sustainable companies. Most importantly, what we are learning is that poor make good customers, not to be exploited, but for their potential to be unlocked. In my country, India, microfinance for the poor, which has been a big movement last 2 decades, has just had 2 to 3% write-offs. But commercial banks who lend to our wealthy have had 6 to 8% write-offs. So if social businesses and big businesses both target the 3 billion poor in the world as the next frontier, it is not philanthropy or altruism. It's just good business. In short, in all 4 realms, a global impact economy is emerging as individuals, enterprises, institutions pursue profit with purpose. This renaissance is ushering a new form of capitalism, impact capitalism or capitalism 2.0 or the impact economy, whatever you choose to call it. And the tipping point has been crossed. New forms of impact enterprises like B Corps, new kind of funds, aligned with SDGs or climate or sustainability, new instruments like impact bonds or outcome funds, new mechanisms like impact rating assessments are all taking hold. We will no longer be divided by for-profit or not-for-profit, but united by impact. This alone can ensure that the entire economic system works for the people and the planet. So if there ever was a silver bullet, it is the impact economy. This brings us to the second big message, which is this journey is going to need a new navigation system. And this is being called Impact Measurement and Management, or IMM. In my country, India, again, this is no longer a choice. Our top 35 companies have a $200 billion environment cost, 3 times their net profits. So if leading Indian companies were to embrace impact capitalism today, they'll be wiped out. The root cause is failing to link impact strategy with core business. And this is because there's no mandatory impact reporting. We too in India have an ESG reporting called Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. Initially started 5 years ago for top 500 companies, now for 1,000 companies. But what India needs and what the whole world needs is separate buckets of ESG sustainability and impact reporting with different objectives ranging from simple disclosures to assessments or full ratings. Now, in India, we're trying to make, and our securities regulator called SEBI recently came out with a guideline that all mutual funds must only invest in ESG stocks. Great news. In fact, we are proposing that they do it for all AMCs, including for insurance. Now, that's where the pendulum is going to shift from this 50% towards this whole 100% with swift pace. My own social enterprise, Aspire Impact, is which is world's first impact rating company, discovering that around the world, pioneering companies are pursuing impact ratings and assessments voluntarily. They don't need a law. Ather Energy, the Tesla of two-wheelers, recently embraced impact reporting and is further trying to augment its leadership in SDG 13, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions, SDG 5, gender equality. It leads in India with 18% women on the shop floor, in an automotive plant, and wants to take it all the way to 50%. National Securities Depository Limited here will redouble its effort beyond financial inclusion to impact in agri, health, and education, SDGs 2, 3, and 4. Careerwill, a leading local language edtech player with 1 million+ paid subscriber, is providing their services free to people with disabilities. In short, when corporations do good and do well, we can achieve SDGs and restore the years lost to this pandemic. And Jordan too can consider putting IMM into the DNA of Jordan, as making social impact an integral part of economic recovery can put every nation at the vanguard of the impact economy. So let me go to my final message. And this one I truly believe. I believe that given Jordan's geographic location, state of economic maturity, language, cultural affinity in the Arab world, as well as the geopolitics of the region, Jordan has a unique opportunity to become an impact finance gateway to the Gulf and the Arab world, and should look to successful examples of people who are trying to do the same things, like Singapore, which is playing a similar role in South and Southeast Asia. And I'll give you the Singapore example, as a comparison point for a minute. It's got a very vibrant impact economy with social enterprises in education, training, health, wellness, providing jobs, education, skills development, taking care of disadvantaged group. It grew up, as you all might remember, in the 80s as an Asian tiger with export-based economy, but its next lever for growth is to become an impact finance hub. And the Prime Minister speaks about it every year at the Independence Day speech. And they are doing three things that Jordan should look at. The role of the government as market facilitator, market participant, and market regulator. As a market facilitator, Singapore has national agencies which train and mentor. They have about 450 social service organizations, 400+ social enterprises. Their central bank is focused on capacity development, on green investments. Their universities like SMU doing executive education in ESG, sustainability, impact. So there is facilitation of the market. As a market participant, Singapore is focusing on access to capital. The government has given away $200 million in grants to social enterprises and nonprofits to date. Temasek, the sovereign fund, and the impact fund subsidiary ABC World Asia, alongside private funds like Leapfrog, LGT, Unitas, they are catalyzing private funding. And banks like DBS, BNP Paribas, in green finance, $5 billion of green bond issuance during the first half of 2021. And I'm going here to think that truly excuse me. Market regulator. Singapore has its own version of principles of responsible investment with 50+ signatories and guidelines on responsible financing for all banks. So if Jordan was to pick a few good practices from countries like Singapore around the world to become the impact finance hub, I believe they can be the following. One, focus on green finance, especially green bond issuance, and figure out, as Singapore did, how to subsidize higher issuance costs in the early years. Second, create a fiscal tax regime for alternate investment funds, asset management companies with tax pass-through or double tax avoidance treaties in the Arab region linked to mandatory investments in ESG sustainable impact securities. 3, advance ESG sustainability and impact from simple disclosures to ratings and assessments, both for social enterprises and corporations, initially voluntarily, to become an impact pioneer in the region. And 4th and finally, promote social enterprises and corporations to specialize in sectors where there's a geographical and regional advantage, like on those on the crossroads of impact and technology, like clean tech, health tech, agri-tech, fintech, edtech, femtech. I'm aware that social enterprises in Jordan are a rising force, addressing significant social issues focused on disadvantaged people. And I was told they're greatly committed to financial sustainability. And now this is very important. You cannot have a sustainable planet without sustainable finance. So the fact that you focus on financial sustainability is amazing. So to all the Jordanian social entrepreneurs here, I must say your participatory approach, bringing together diverse stakeholders, reinvesting in capacity development and enhance impact is truly praiseworthy. Now, this is how Jordan too could become a gateway to Gulf Arab world by adopting leading practices and showing the region how to usher in the impact economy, to crowd in impact players to headquarter in Jordan, and to become the impact hub of Arabia. This future beckons you all, and I'm confident that you will seize the moment. So I'm going to leave you with this. If 19th century was about return and 20th century about risk and return, 21st century will be about risk, return, and impact. Corporations and social enterprises alike are hiring chief impact officers. This is the Bretton Woods moment for the global development economy to rise and embrace the impact future. I hope you will all lead the way for impact in Arabia. Thank you for your time. Namaste.